young and I don't know no other ways. I've been balling for the moment, but can't sight the better days. You fell off and now you lost the shit that you was just a phase. I became this on my own, no, this is not how I was raised.
All right, man. So like I said, why don't you do this? Why don't you give a quick intro, who you are, and then I'll roll into kind of the question for you. But you got keep in mind, I want, my reason for doing this is to try to get, obviously we're followed by a lot of WIPIO kids. So I just want them to hear voices from other coaches around the WIPIO, you know what I mean, to get some value out of it. So that's kind of my mind frame, and that's where I'm going to be speaking from when doing this. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, my name is Kyle DeGREGORIO. I'm an assistant basketball coach at Peters Township, but this will be my 41st year of coaching. So my journey has been, I've been a lot of places. I mean, I've coached, been an assistant at the college level, at Millersville University and Roanoke College. When I was 26, I had an opportunity for 2 years until they found a coach to be the head coach at a Division II school, East Stroudsburg. And then I got into high school coaching, and I've predominantly been a head coach at the high school level. But I was an assistant for my brother at NA for 2 years, and now I'm at Peters. So yeah. I have 41 years of coaching, of working with kids, and I think most importantly, just enjoying and trying to learn as much about the game as I can.
Yeah, I know you're a basketball junkie. You know what I mean? I use that term, so that's why I want to do this and talk to guys who I know are that way, who kind of live and breathe it, who watch it, consume it constantly, because that's the cloth that I'm cut from, and the people around me at the academy. So I think being able to have some good convo about the things that I think about, hearing it from a high school coach's perspective as well, adds value to the people who watch and look for things from us. So that's why I just did this with Coach David last week. I got Coach Mastriani, who's going to be on in a couple weeks, and I'm glad I'm doing this with you now. And like I said, I think it'll be good for people in general to hear, for kids to hear, and just get different takes on things. So I really have one question that we can just talk through, so basketball is changing so much, just from culture wise, you know what I mean? Just of what it is, how it's played, the things that go on. How do you yourself, how do you view the state of basketball right now, youth basketball? How do you view it? And what are like the key things at the top of your mind right now, as far as how you go about your day-to-day stuff? Like what is Kyle's stuff right now that he's on, you know what I mean, on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think, James, the game is constantly changing. And I mean, when I first started my first couple years of coaching and you're getting your feet wet, I think you do things because you learn things from other people and you just don't know what else to do. I mean, okay, so I'm going to teach you how to V-cut, right, and create a lead to catch the ball. And I'm doing it because I learned it from my high school coach.
Right.
I learned. So then I think good coaches start asking the questions like, why do I teach that? And when you start asking the reason why, I think it takes you on a journey where you just want to learn as much as you can about how the game is played. And as the game changes, I think, because it's constantly changing.
Right.
The rules change.
Yep.
I mean, I started coaching, there wasn't a 3-point line.
Yeah.
I mean, most kids can't remember that. I mean, that was back in the mid-'80s, so I was coaching, there wasn't a 3-point line. And now, when that first came, I mean, it took people some time to figure out, like, okay, how does that change the game?
Right.
And it changed the spacing of the game. It changed. That was the where it started. I mean,
So I just to stop you,
from being,
just to interject real quick, like, cause that's something I don't think the 3-point line thing never crossed my mind, but things like that 3-point line specifically, in your mind, what you've seen in 41 years, does it are the changes making the game better or worse, or do you not see it that way at all? Is it just this is what it is, and
this is what it is, and
yeah,
it just makes it different. You know what I mean?
yep,
So I think over, the transition of that and the shot clock, and then, the other thing was, because there was a time when college played without a shot clock. I mean, look at Dean Smith,
yeah,
in his four corners and how he approached the game. And then you had, all of these people who really became skill enhancement specialists. And I think, we started to really dig down and look at something as simple as a crossover dribble, and people realized, man, there's a lot of depth to teaching something just like that.
yeah.
So now we don't have a cross, we got a push cross, and we got a million things. So, so I think that changed the game a lot too. And I think, again, it's just different.
Yeah.
So as a coach, how do I put my team in a position based on those changes so we can be successful? And how do I put my kids in a position where they can maximize their ability to help us be successful? But then if they also have aspirations to play beyond high school, what puts them in a position where they know more than most kids and their skill set will allow them to really compete and get on the court quickly at the next level?
Yeah, see, the way that we kind of view it is, because same thing with us, we graduated college in 2013. I actually remember in a game I had to dribble the clock out, standing at half court with nobody even around me, just dribbling the ball, and the ref called a carry. And I'm literally just dribbling the basketball, right? Because the way that we dribble it is not how they dribbled it in the 80s. And so just even the ebbs and even in career from 2009 to 2013, myself, Reese, we weren't the only ones, but there was still a small amount of guards who were dribbling the ball 3 feet behind the line and pulling up with a contested three. That's regular stuff now. That's just what you see in basketball. That's not crazy. At that time, that was really not, I don't want to say taboo, but that was really not viewed as a good way to play. And I still don't think it's a good way to play, but it was different. There was only a small group of people doing that. But the way that I view it is, the way that we view it is, those are just skills, and those change over time, and there's evolution of them. But the core things that make you win basketball games are the same.
Yeah, they are, but James, you look at, okay, people will talk about fundamental skills, right? We want to teach fundamental skills.
Yeah.
What are fundamental skills? And I think a lot of people think, well, they're just simple things that you do. It's keeping things simple, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend a lot of time, throwing a pocket pass, a one-hand pass off the dribble. And there's people who would look at that and say, oh, that's not good basketball.
Yeah,
you
right.
pass the ball with two hands.
Yep.
But if you're playing really quick, athletic kids who are well coached,
yep,
you don't have a chance to put a second hand on the ball.
Exactly. Yeah. And those are ebbs and flows that I always found frustrating with coaches, because if you never did it yourself, if you never had to score on this type of person, pass on this type of person, protect the ball on this type of person, close out on this type of person, you don't know what that even feels like. Now, there are guys who have a better idea because they look at it objectively, but you're going to have some people who are going to blanket it like that, where you don't throw a one-hand pass. Well, if you never had to throw it or understand why kids have to throw it, it's easy to say that. But there are nuances about the game that you can't blanket statement a lot of this stuff.
No, you can't. I mean, the game isn't played that way. Like I think a lot of people look at fundamental skills. They look at skills. What are you teaching? Decision making is a skill, and how many people really put their kids in a position daily to make decisions? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's not just basketball decisions. I mean, there's a big character skills piece to this. So
yeah.
how many? So when you look at I know we're going to a workout today, and part of what we've incorporated in our workout is taking our guys to frustration, taking our guys to where, okay, I now have to practice when I get frustrated, being able to figure out a strategy, where I can take myself from being frustrated to refocus.
Yeah.
During the course of practice.
Yep.
If you're not practicing that, it just doesn't happen in a game.
Right.
And there's moments in any game that you play where things are going to go well, things aren't going to go well. How do you handle that? And not only have you talked about the character skills required to have poise, to be a mature competitor, but you better be putting your kids under pressure in situations where they have to practice those character skills every day.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, when the games come, and the competition gets stiffer, you're not going to have the repetitions in those areas that you need to be successful.
Yeah. See, and no, I mean that's spot on, because I view what we do at REL Academy is like a feeder program. It's really, elementary school and middle school, and trying to prepare kids to be passed off to high school to have a decent career. And so especially in our area, the best kids, the quote unquote best kids that you hear about, or the other kids will tell you about, or other parents will tell you about, they usually are the best visually. Like if you just throw them in a drill, they're going to move a little better. They're going to dribble it a little better. They may have a couple other things in the tool bag that others don't. But we see this so often, man. You put that kid under real game-like pressure, put them around other kids, whether they're good or bad players that really want to compete. And just details of boxing out, anything that is tough, that's a cut above. Like we often have kids shed tears in the gym, and these are supposed to be kids who are top tier, talent or whatever in the area. Because people don't understand, especially an ignorant parent doesn't understand that just how your kid moves on the floor and visually looks does not make them a certain elite player, doesn't put them in a certain category of a basketball player. And it goes the whole way up the line. College, NBA, high school, girls, boys, it doesn't matter. There's a skill piece and there's a mental piece. And I would argue that it's not very hard to build a skill piece. It is very hard to build a mental piece that's going to level up to that skill to make you solid enough.
Yeah, it is. And I think in the message I try to give young kids is, if you look at the best of the best, there's a reason they're there. And they're using their coaches to get better. Their coaches aren't dictating to them in a lot of cases what they're going to do every day. Really good players. I mean, you think Steph Curry walks into practice and Steve Kerr says, okay, here's what I need you. Steph Curry, they're having conversations at the end of every practice where, good coaches are then looking and saying, okay, what do my kids need right now to get better? What do my players need right now to get better? And the other part of that is, so if you're a young guy, are you setting daily goals? I mean, are you not long-term goals, but really short-term process goals?
Yep.
Like, okay, what am I going to do today to get better? Are you intentional about that? But in order to do that, you got to make honest evaluations of yourself as a player.
Yeah.
But really good players, I mean, and it has nothing to do with guys that make it to the NBA. I mean, kids that maximize their God-given abilities.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
and get to be the best that they could possibly be.
Yep.
Because everybody has limitations, right?
Absolutely.
Could be your size, it could be your strength, it could be your quickness. Maybe there's a skill that you just haven't really mastered. So everybody has limitations.
Right.
But the question becomes, are you able to recognize, okay, what are my strengths, and then can I be intentional to build on my strengths every day to make me the best player that I can be?
Right.
So really good players honestly evaluate, and then they thirst for feedback. I mean, they want feedback.
Yeah.
They don't want somebody to to just say, "Oh, what a great job today,"
Yep.
or you can really coach them hard, and I don't mean scream at them.
No, coaching hard is not screaming at kids. I mean, you could scream; it might be a piece of it, but that's not what coaching hard means.
We're going to do a short closeout and jump to the ball drill today.
Yep.
So that's really detailed. I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yep.
And so we're going to have some kids in there today that they're just going to try to do it, and they're not. But we're going to have some kids in there today. They're going to ask questions. They're going to want to know about the angle. When that short closeout. They're going to do it with a high level of focus and a high level of intensity.
Right.
And then they're going to journal. They're going to make adjustments. They're going to come back to me tomorrow and say, "Coach, can you explain this again? I don't quite understand this.
Yep.
I'm having trouble." And those are the kids. Those are the kids that get better. So can you evaluate yourself honestly, and then do you thirst for feedback where you want to know from an expert what am I doing right? What do I need to fix? And then can you set daily intentional goals to make sure you're working on those things to get better?
So that type of kid that you're describing, to me, again, so I've been doing this 10 years. The academy for 10 years in this format, and I don't know how many kids I've dealt with, but a lot, in all different types. I would say that category of kid you just described is actually very rare. You're not gonna.
James, I've had 3 of those kids in 41 years of coaching.
Yeah.
3.
Right.
So it's a great point by you, because kids aren't born like that.
No.
Very few. I've had 3.
Yeah.
3 that I didn't need to motivate. 3 that they just got it. I mean, they just had it from day one. But as coaches, as teachers, as educators, we have a responsibility to teach kids that process, right?
Yep.
And to get them to understand that's the slight edge that they have to maximize their ability. So,
right.
It's no different, James. We'll tell kids, "Hey, I need you to set goals," and the kid's like, "Okay, what does that mean?"
Yep.
But as a coach and as a teacher, am I really explaining? Am I giving them practical examples? Do they understand exactly what setting a process goal, a daily goal is?
Yeah. Like, can you make? I think it's a hard task. I like that what you just said. It's a hard task to even get a kid to want to set the goals, rather than just setting them because you told them to, right? But to even get a kid to cultivate his mind to say this, it's like buying into a defensive principle or whatever, to buy into this is what it takes for me to get better on my mental side. It's a tall order just to be able, you as the coach, the educator, to get that kid to make that flip in his mind. It's tough.
Well, and it's Kobe Bryant. I listened to a podcast, God rest his soul, from years ago. And Kobe Bryant, back when they had Shaq and they won the NBA championship, they asked Kobe, like, what got you guys over the top? And because if you remember, his relationship with Shaquille wasn't always good.
Yep.
And that was because Kobe was just a workaholic, and Shaq was not.
Yeah.
He wasn't built that way.
Yep.
And so, and what Kobe said was the communication that they had as a team on and off the court is what made them elite.
Yeah.
So like if you're going into a workout, do you have a goal set where you're going to become a better communicator? I would tell you most kids don't even think about it. The coaches talk about it. But as a coach, if I want you to communicate better, I need to be really specific with what do I want you to communicate? Yeah. Right. So, and what should you say?
Do you just to interject on that real quick? Do you think, I'm interested to hear what you had to say about this? A kid who is just naturally quiet, introverted, awkward, do you have to try to get that kid over the communication hump to be more outward with it, or do you think it can still be hit? His potential can still be hit if he stays in that shell?
Well, I think it's no different. If you want to be an accountant, right? You got to add, you got to multiply, you got to divide, you got to be pretty good with numbers.
Yeah.
If you want to play the game of basketball, you have to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
So for kids to understand, like, I'm a different person, James, when I'm at home with my family.
Yeah, right.
I'm really quiet. I'm really reserved.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
I can be that way, right?
Yep.
But when I'm on the basketball court, it's kind of like being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different disposition that I have to have as a coach. So when I step on that court and I put that coach's hat on, I have to be a different person.
Yep.
So a part of that hat is I have to be a good communicator, and there's so many different levels of communication. So like we switch everything on defense, on and off the ball. And so off the ball, it's actually harder to do that than on the ball.
Mm.
So when we switch to disrupt. So we're switching so you can't make the next pass.
Yeah.
Right? We're switching so that we can take things away from you.
Mm-hmm.
We're not switching because it's convenient. And then we have to communicate off the ball. If we're stuck in a mismatch on the weak side, can we communicate to switch back and fix it without paying a price? So if you can't talk and you can't listen and you can't communicate, I don't care how skilled you are.
Yep.
Anything that requires multiple people, if you can't open your mouth and pick the right words and do it really quickly,
Yep.
You're not going to be successful at that. So,
yeah.
So that's one type of communication. It really impacts how well, you can do what you're trying to do.
Right.
It affects the quality of what you do.
Yeah, I would say from a youth, I have a daughter, she's 2 years old. Right now it doesn't look like she's even gonna like basketball. But if it was, unfortunately, but if a kid is my own child, knowing what I know about building young kids now at a second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I'm gonna hold my kid accountable. I understand how important the communication piece is, regardless of the physical side, the basketball skill. I understand as they move up the ladder how important it is. And I think the earlier you can ingrain that, right, like you just said, regardless of the personality, if you can get them to turn on the acting and just understand this is part of it. Like when I walk in the gym and immediately want to start warming up, because it's a requirement, it's also a requirement that I got to be able to talk and ready to communicate. And at the youth level, I could go on for hours about this, but the piece that I think is broken, and I like to think that we're trying to fix, or at least providing an avenue that can be taken to fix, is a kid could play for, from first grade, second grade, third grade. Third grade is usually organized, let's say from third all the way up to ninth, and has never had a coach teach them communication and be held accountable to communicate, when it's the easiest thing to do technically, because there's no limitations on it. Your limitations don't matter. It's the easiest thing to do, and regardless of skill, even at the highest level, it's probably the most effective. But it doesn't get taught, and so that's probably our number one thing in the gym that's physical, because talking is physical. There's a mental aspect to it, but it's a physical thing you can actually do immediately to impact the game, and it doesn't happen.
But think of all the things required for you to communicate. First of all, you need to know the concepts that whatever your concepts your coach is teaching you.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're supposed to do, like what's your mission, what's your objective.
Mm-hmm.
So, defensively, we switch everything. So that requires every time on and off the ball, two people come together. There's a lot of times we're switching that.
Yeah.
So, who's calling it? What are we saying?
Yeah. What are we saying? We deal with that a lot. Like, what are you saying when it's time?
Right. So it requires you to have a high level understanding of what we do.
Yeah.
And not every kid, kids walk into the gym all the time, and we're going to have new kids today, and my message to them is, bud, we're doing this for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're doing, you can't be in our drill. You
Right.
need to sit.
Right.
So,
Right.
So, and the kid will, parents will look at you and go like, what? How are they supposed to learn? Well, you know what? They can do it on their own.
Yeah.
I gave them, do they have a notebook? Are they paying attention? Are they writing stuff down?
Mm-hmm.
But then the other type, look at the things that impact communication. I mean, think of a family. Your kid gets angry. what do? They communicate differently when they're angry
Right.
than when they're excited, or
Right.
when they're pleased, or when they're happy. So think about all the emotions that go on in a basketball game. So there comes your character skills. So
Yeah.
when a kid gets angry, a kid gets frustrated, think about it. You see it all the time. The coach is trying to talk to the kid when the kid doesn't even look at him and look him in the eye or listen.
Yep.
That's not acceptable.
Right.
But it has to be practiced. So, in your practices, your workouts, you have to take kids to uncomfortable positions.
Yep.
To where they get frustrated. They start to experience a whole myriad of different emotions where, when then they're spoken to, maybe it's a moment they just made a great play, but we need to make the next play. I need to get you back to where I can see your eyes and you can understand what I need done, and it gets done. Think about, so all of that, that affects communication.
Yeah.
What's your self-talk like? You communicate with yourself all the time. So are you announcing the game in your head, or did you miss a shot and now you're trying to go down the other end and guard, and you still have in your head that, damn, I missed that shot.
Right.
You can't play that way. Not this game. It's a game of action and reaction, and the game doesn't stop every play like football.
Right.
So you have to move mentally with the flow of the game just like you do physically. And I will tell you, the mental part of things, the emotional part of things drives the physical show.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
If you can't master that, you're going to struggle.
Yeah. I would when we played me and Reese played Division III ball in the pack, and even at that, we had so many D1 transfers come in. We had so many D2 transfers, JUCO kids come in who were 22, 23. And even at that, you would see these kids were clearly talented, right? And people don't realize at the college level, you only have a rotation of like 7, and usually the 7th guy is probably only playing about half the game, maybe less sometimes. And the really good programs have maybe 8. But you would have these kids who are very talented, size, athleticism, yada yada, just came from a D1, but can't get in our rotation of 7 at Division III because they're lacking these other mental parts of the game.
Correct.
You understand what I mean?
James, think about this. There's a college, I believe it's in Minnesota, St. Thomas, and they basically got kicked out of their Division III league. I think it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Right before COVID, they got kicked out because they were just too good. They won it every year. They were in the Final Four of Division III a lot of the time. I believe they won 2 national championships.
Okay.
So they got kicked out of their league, and the decision they made was to go to Division I. So they went from 3 to 1.
Yeah.
And you would think the coach would have brought all these new guys in, and hey, we can't compete at a division. He had all 5 starters back. He had his sixth guy back and his 8th guy back. And those kids came back to play because they wanted to prove to people that, we can play at a Division I level.
Yeah.
And their goal was to win 10 Division I games.
Okay.
And they accomplished that.
Yeah.
And so basketball is basketball. I mean, it is. And like I'm at Peters Township right now, so we're a 5A team. I mean, that's the big time for me. Wherever you're at is the big time. So,
right, you're right. Yeah.
There's good players wherever you go. Whatever high school, there's good players.
Right.
There's good coaches. So if you're a real student of the games, most of the stuff I've learned, I haven't learned from big time Division I coaches.
Yeah.
I've learned from a high school coach in Louisiana, or I've learned from a guy that coached the women Japanese Olympic team. You know what I mean? So there's a ton of things out there. I think, James, there's not enough people. Like, a lot of people want to learn something, so they'll read an article. I like to play fast. I'm a big, proponent of playing fast. And, there's a whole group of guys that believe in that. And, So, are you going to do a deep dive of thousands of hours, or are you going to read an article?
Yeah. Right.
So everybody, it's just, how much do you want to learn about something?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's I mean, in my professional life, running this business, in my sports life, dealing with kids and their sports lives, do you want to learn? Like your education, that's the difference. You're not your academics, but your education, wanting to just learn in any way, shape, or form. That is your number one driver, and that's how you can get the most out of yourself. Like kind of going back to what you said way earlier, it's everybody has their own ceiling. To hit your ceiling, you might be able to take in way more info than you currently have if you dig for it. You know what I mean?
Hey, and coaches have ceilings too.
Yeah.
I mean, as a coach, and I've done this a long time. I mean, there's things that I feel really comfortable teaching. There's things I'm better at teaching than other things.
Yeah.
And I understand what my strengths as a coach are. I also understand the things that come very hard to me as a coach. So coaches are no different.
Right.
We have different strengths and weaknesses and challenges as well. Which leads me to my next thing, James, because this is kind of my biggest thing right now. I listened to a podcast from Jamal Murray after they won, the Nuggets won the NBA championship. And, it was awesome to hear what he had to say, because what he basically talked about was, the question was, what were the key ingredients to you guys being NBA champions? And it had really nothing to do with an offense.
Right.
He made the comment. He said, what got us there was the fact that everybody understood their role and the responsibility that went along with their role, and they accepted that.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example, because I don't think most people understand what that means. So look at Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray was going to get most of the shots on that team, right? Him and Jokic. So Jamal Murray understood that if that's his role, he understood that he needed to be the hardest worker in the gym. He needed to be the best defender in the gym.
Yeah.
Because for him to say to his guys, hey, I need the ball right now, there needed to be a level of trust there. And he understood that the responsibility I have of being the best player on this team and taking the lion's share of the shots and getting the most attention, I also need to let my guys know that I'm going to be the hardest work when it comes to all the little things that nobody wants to do.
Right. It's not just
better than anybody.
It's not just I'm really talented, so give me the ball.
Yeah.
There's more to it. Yeah.